I was 7 months pregnant, standing on the cold stone steps of what used to be my home, clutching a single suitcase while my husband's mistress, Serafina, looked down at me from my bedroom window with a smile that could cut glass. The entire exclusive neighborhood had gathered to watch my humiliation. My mother-in-law, Beatrice, stood by the entrance in her crisp yellow suit, loud enough for everyone to hear as she called me a worthless gold digger who tried to trap her son. But then, two gleaming white Rolls-Royce Phantoms pulled up to the curb, and I watched every single face on that street drain of color. That moment changed everything. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Before we move forward, if you genuinely value kindness, second chances, and the strength of compassion, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Linda's Hot Stories. Also, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from today. What country or city are you watching from? 2 years ago, I believed I'd found my happily ever after. Kingsley Thorne walked into the small cafe where I was working double shifts, and he was everything I'd dreamed of. Handsome, cultured, from the kind of family whose name appeared on historic buildings and philanthropy awards. When he proposed after 8 months, I couldn't comprehend why someone from his world would choose someone from mine. His mother, Beatrice, made her feelings clear from our first meeting. She examined my clothes, my posture, my background, calculating my value with eyes that had appraised fortunes for decades. I didn't measure up. But Kingsley insisted he loved me, and eventually, she offered what I mistook for approval. We married on the sprawling Thorne estate, a property that had housed generations of wealth and privilege. I moved into their mansion with its endless corridors and manicured grounds, surrounded by neighbors who summered in the Hamptons and treated charity galas like casual Tuesday evenings. They were cordial enough, inviting me to their fundraisers and garden parties. I volunteered for their causes, organized their events, desperate to prove I belonged in this gilded world that felt like a foreign country. For a while, I thought I'd actually made it. Kingsley was attentive. Beatrice was civil. I allowed myself to believe the fairy tale was real. Then came the pregnancy. I was overjoyed, certain a baby would cement my place in the Thorne family. I spent weeks preparing the nursery, painting soft clouds on cream walls, imagining the life we'd build together. But around my 5th month, everything shifted. Kingsley started working impossibly late hours, sometimes not coming home at all. When I questioned him, his response was always the same. The family business was in crisis. He was saving our future. His phone became an extension of his hand, and he'd disappear to take calls in locked rooms. I tried to silence the warning bells. I tried to trust him. But instinct kept screaming that something was catastrophically wrong. Then Serafina arrived. Beatrice introduced her at a family dinner as the daughter of a crucial business partner, just returned from abroad. She was flawless in that devastating way some women are. Designer elegance, effortless poise, the supreme confidence that comes from never knowing financial worry. She sat across from Kingsley, and I watched them share knowing glances about shared history I wasn't part of. Beatrice gazed at her with an affection she'd never shown me, like Serafina was the daughter she'd always deserved. After that night, Serafina became inescapable. She appeared at breakfast without invitation, attended every family gathering, dropped by the estate whenever she pleased. I'd find her in the morning room with Beatrice, the two of them huddled over tea like conspirators. The way she touched Kingsley's shoulder when she laughed, the lingering glances they exchanged, it twisted something deep in my chest. I threw myself into being the perfect Thorne wife, convinced I could secure my place through sheer effort. I organized their annual charity auction, raising twice what they'd managed the previous year. I hosted garden parties for Beatrice's friends, memorized the names of everyone's children and grandchildren, learned which caterers were acceptable and which wines paired with which courses. I was performing for an audience that had already decided I didn't belong. When I discovered I was pregnant, relief flooded through me. A baby would make me untouchable, truly family. I decorated the nursery with trembling hands, each brushstroke a prayer that this child would finally root me in the Thorne legacy. But Kingsley's eyes grew distant the day I told him. Within weeks, He was working until dawn, his phone constantly buzzing with messages he'd turn away to read. The estate felt colder, the hallways longer. Beatrice's thin smiles disappeared entirely, replaced by a calculating coldness that made my skin prickle. I was losing him, losing everything, and I didn't yet understand that I'd already lost it all. Serafina made herself at home with alarming speed. She had her own seat at the dining table, her preferred coffee mug in the kitchen, her coat hanging in the front hallway as though she'd always lived there. I'd come downstairs for breakfast and find her already there, discussing business matters with Kingsley in that low, familiar way that made my stomach clench. Beatrice's affection for her was obvious and cruel. She'd compliment Serafina's taste, her elegance, her family connections, all the things she'd found lacking in me. I watched her touch Serafina's arm with genuine warmth, laugh at her observations, and seek her opinion on estate matters. This was the daughter-in-law she'd wanted. The intimacy between Serafina and Kingsley grew bolder. Her hand would rest on his arm too long during conversation. They'd disappear into his study for hours, emerging with flushed cheeks and secretive smiles. Finally, I confronted him. His response was swift and dismissive, barely glancing up from his laptop. "You're being paranoid, Eliza. The pregnancy hormones are making you irrational. Serafina is helping with the business restructuring. Nothing more." But I knew better. I felt it in my bones. The proof came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was gathering Kingsley's dry cleaning when something slipped from his jacket pocket. A delicate diamond hairpin, the kind that cost more than most people's cars. It caught the light, brilliant and damning, with an elegant S engraved on the clasp. My hands shook as I held it. This wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before. When Kingsley came home, I confronted him immediately, the hairpin trembling in my palm. He barely looked up from his tablet, his voice maddeningly casual. "It's for a client's wife. Her birthday is this weekend. I'm dropping it off tomorrow." I wanted to believe him. God, how desperately I wanted to believe him. But the following week, at the annual hospital gala, I saw Serafina across the ballroom. The diamond hairpin glittered in her perfectly styled hair, catching the chandelier light like a trophy. She saw me staring and turned, meeting my gaze with a smile so cold and knowing it stopped my breath. She touched the hairpin deliberately, possessively, and I understood. This wasn't carelessness. This was a message. She wanted me to know. I couldn't sleep that night. Or the next. The hairpin haunted me, proof of a betrayal everyone denied. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a house full of people who insisted the water wasn't real. I needed more than instinct. I needed undeniable truth. The following afternoon, while Kingsley was supposedly at the office and Beatrice had left for her country club luncheon, I moved through the estate searching for evidence. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Documents, messages, anything concrete. Then I heard voices drifting from the study. Beatrice's sharp tone, unmistakable, followed by Serafina's lighter laugh. My heart hammered as I approached, pressing myself against the wall outside the door. "Once she's gone, you'll marry Kingsley properly," Beatrice was saying. "Your father's company merger will save Thorne Industries from complete bankruptcy. We'll finally be solvent again." Serafina's voice dripped with satisfaction. "I can't wait to redecorate this entire place." Her taste is absolutely pedestrian. Though the pregnancy does complicate our timeline. Beatrice sighed heavily. "We'll handle it after the birth. DNA test to confirm paternity, quick divorce proceedings, and then we move forward. The lawyers have already drafted everything." A gasp escaped my throat before I could stop it. The room went silent. Then the door swung open. Beatrice stood there, her face transforming from shock to icy contempt in seconds. She straightened her pearl necklace with deliberate calm. "Well, I suppose this saves us the trouble of a formal explanation." I couldn't breathe. "What are you talking about? What plan?" Serafina appeared behind her, arms crossed, all pretense of civility gone. Oh please, don't play stupid. Surely you suspected this was coming. Beatrice stepped forward, her voice cutting like a blade. My son deserves better than a desperate peasant who trapped him with a pregnancy. You've always been a liability, Eliza. This family has simply run out of patience. My voice came out broken, desperate. I have brothers. They'll help me. I'm not alone. Beatrice actually laughed, a sound like shattering glass. Oh, we had you thoroughly investigated before Kingsley proposed. 2 brothers who vanished years ago, likely dead or rotting in some prison. You have no one, Eliza. You've never had anyone. That's precisely why you clung to my son like the parasite you are. The words hit like physical blows. I stumbled backward, one hand instinctively protecting my swollen belly. Pack her things, Beatrice snapped to the hovering servants. I want her off this property within the hour. I ran through the house searching for Kingsley, needing him to tell me this was a nightmare, that he'd fix this. I found him in the conservatory with Serafina, wedding venue brochures spread across the table between them. He looked up at me, and his eyes held nothing. No love, no guilt, not even anger. Just cold indifference. Kingsley, please. We belong in the same world, Eliza, he said, his voice flat. You were a mistake. I see that now. Serafina smiled, sliding her hand over his. That was when I truly understood. I'd never been his wife. I'd been his temporary lapse in judgment. The servants worked efficiently, packing my life into 3 battered suitcases. They carried them through the front door and hurled them onto the pristine lawn like garbage. I followed, 7 months pregnant and unsteady, emerging onto the stone steps to find the neighbors already gathering. Beatrice stood at the entrance, her voice projected for the maximum audience. Let this be a lesson about gold diggers and their schemes. This woman trapped my son with a pregnancy, thinking she could secure our family's wealth. Well, the Thorns don't tolerate frauds. Faces I'd smiled at during garden parties now watched with fascinated horror. Women I'd organized charity events with whispered behind manicured hands. No one moved to help. I stood there, humiliated and shaking, when elderly Mr. Chen from 3 houses down appeared at my side. Without a word, he pressed his phone into my trembling hands. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 5 years, my fingers barely working. The line clicked open. Alexander. My voice cracked completely. They threw me out. I'm pregnant and they. Where are you? His voice was steel wrapped in ice. Still at the estate. On the lawn with my. Stay exactly where you are. Something dangerous moved beneath his words. We're coming. The line went dead. I stood there clutching the phone, surrounded by my scattered belongings and spectators, waiting for salvation or final collapse. 15 minutes later, the street fell silent. 2 identical white Rolls-Royce Phantoms glided up the drive like apparitions, their custom paint gleaming in the afternoon sun. Every neighbor froze. Even Beatrice's triumphant expression faltered. The first car's door opened, and a man emerged in a perfectly tailored black suit, tall, commanding, with eyes that could freeze blood. Alexander. My brother. Behind him from the second Phantom, stepped Marcus in a burgundy suit, his presence equally formidable. Alexander crossed to me in 3 strides, kneeling beside where I'd collapsed on the steps. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. I've got you, he whispered. This ends now. Marcus surveyed the gathered crowd with a chilling calm, his gaze cataloging every face like he was deciding their fates. Alexander stood, turning to face Beatrice and the watching neighbors. His voice carried with absolute authority. For those wondering, I'm Alexander Riker, CEO of Riker Global. This is my partner Marcus. And this woman you've been humiliating is our sister. Beatrice went pale. Alexander's smile was predatory. Mrs. Thorne, I should inform you, as of 20 minutes ago, I purchased your family's entire debt portfolio. Every loan, every mortgage, every outstanding obligation. He paused, letting it sink in. Your house, your company, your precious family name, it all belongs to me now. The color drained from every face on that lawn. Marcus stepped forward, pulling a leather folder from his jacket. Allow me to clarify your situation. Thorn Industries has been technically insolvent for 18 months. The estate is mortgaged beyond its value. Your art collection was sold to private collectors last quarter. Those are replicas hanging in your halls. His voice was clinical, devastating. As of this moment, foreclosure proceedings begin. You have 72 hours to vacate. Beatrice clutched the doorframe, her face ashen. Kingsley appeared behind her, comprehension dawning in his eyes. Marcus turned his attention to Serafina, who'd been watching from the window. And you, Miss Wells, or should I say Mrs. Cardano? He held up documents. Married for 6 years to Vincent Cardano of Naples. This is your 4th attempt at defrauding a wealthy family through marriage schemes. Interpol has been quite interested in your whereabouts. Serafina's perfect composure shattered. Sirens wailed in the distance. News vans were already pulling up, cameras emerging like predators scenting blood. Alexander lifted me effortlessly, carrying me toward the phantom. Marcus followed, his hand protective at my back. Behind us, I heard Beatrice shrieking at the approaching officers, Kingsley stammering explanations nobody believed. As we pulled away, I looked back once. The great Thorn estate, that monument to old money and older cruelty, was already surrounded by police tape and camera flashes. They'd built their empire on looking down at people like me. It took my brothers 15 minutes to dismantle it completely. Alexander and Marcus surrounded me with the kind of care I'd forgotten existed. Private doctors, a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, peace. 2 months later, I gave birth to my daughter in a suite that felt like heaven. I named her Hope, because that's what she represented, the future I'd almost lost. The divorce was swift and merciless. The courts awarded me full custody and monthly support calculated on the Thorns' former wealth, before their collapse. Kingsley couldn't afford to contest anything. With my brother's backing and my own carefully honed skills from years of running charity events and navigating elite social circles, I launched a consulting firm for women rebuilding after divorce. Within a year, Forbes featured me in their 30 Under 30 issue. The girl they'd called a peasant was now the woman teaching others how to reclaim their power. 6 months after the feature, I saw him. Kingsley, wearing a delivery company uniform, carrying packages into an office building. He looked up, recognized me, and something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or the ghost of what he'd thrown away. I felt nothing but peace. I adjusted Hope on my hip, her laugh bright and perfect, and walked past him without a word. That chapter was closed. The Thorns had been my mistake, but my brothers, and the woman I'd become, were my truth. Some fairy tales end with princes. Mine ended with me finding my own crown. If this story resonated with you, we'd be grateful if you take a moment to like, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to Linda's Hot Stories. Your engagement allows us to continue sharing meaningful stories that inspire. Before you leave, we'd love to hear from you. What did you learn from this story? God bless you.